Sarah Matthews stared at the black suitcase in front of her, her heart pounding against her ribs. This wasn't her worn-out navy blue luggage. This sleek Samsonite definitely belonged to someone else. The realization hit her like a wave of cold water. In the chaos of baggage claim at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, she had grabbed the wrong suitcase. Her own bag, containing everything she had carefully packed for this crucial job interview, was now probably halfway across the city with a stranger. "Mummy, I'm hungry." 5-year-old Emma tugged at her sleeve, her brown curls falling into her tired eyes. It was already past 9 in the evening, and they had been traveling since early morning from their small hometown in Missouri. Sarah's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone, checking her bank account balance for the 100th time, $246.73. The cheap motel room had already cost her $89, and she needed to save enough for their return flight in 2 days. "Just a minute, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, trying to keep her voice steady. This interview at Preston & Brooks Publishing was her chance at a better life, her opportunity to finally move beyond the struggling single mother existence she'd been living since Emma's father abandoned them 4 years ago. She had spent her last savings on this trip, believing that her experience as a freelance editor could finally land her a stable position with benefits that would include health insurance for Emma. The suitcase seemed to mock her from its position on the worn motel carpet. Sarah knelt beside it, examining the luggage tag. Alexander Crawford was written in elegant handwriting, along with a Chicago phone number. Her fingers hesitated over her phone's keypad. What would she say? How could she explain that she had accidentally taken a stranger's bag because she had been too distracted trying to keep Emma from running off in the crowded airport while managing their carry-on bags? A knock on the motel room door made her jump. Emma, who had been playing with her stuffed rabbit on the bed, looked up with wide eyes. "Ms. Matthews," a male voice called from outside. "This is the front desk." Sarah approached the door cautiously, keeping the security chain in place as she opened it a crack. The motel clerk, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair, stood there holding a paper bag. "Sorry to disturb you, but a gentleman called the motel asking about you. Said there was a mix-up with luggage at the airport." The clerk held up the paper bag. "He had food delivered for you and your daughter. Said he figured you might be stuck without dinner because of the situation." Sarah's mouth fell open slightly. She closed the door, removed the chain, and reopened it fully. The paper bag's logo showed it was from a nearby diner, and the wonderful smell of warm food wafted from it. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she and Emma had eaten nothing but airport snacks all day. "He also left a message," the clerk continued, handing her a folded note along with the bag. "Said he's got your suitcase and would like to arrange an exchange tomorrow morning. Seems like a nice fellow. Mentioned he's staying at the Drake Hotel downtown." Sarah's hands shook slightly as she unfolded the note. The handwriting matched the luggage tag. "Ms. Matthews, I believe we have each other's bags. I'm terribly sorry about the confusion, but please don't worry. I've taken the liberty of sending you and your daughter some dinner. I hope that's not too presumptuous. I'll be in meetings until 11 a.m. tomorrow, but I could meet you at the Drake Hotel lobby at noon to exchange our luggage. I understand you're probably on a tight schedule, so I'm happy to have a car service bring you here. Please call or text me when you can. Alexander Crawford." The note included his phone number again, along with a P.S. "I promise I haven't opened your suitcase." Sarah stood frozen in the doorway until Emma's voice broke through her thoughts. "Is that food, Mummy? It smells so good." Thanking the clerk, Sarah brought the bag inside and began unpacking its contents on the small motel table. 2 cheeseburgers, French fries, chicken nuggets, apple slices, and even 2 slices of chocolate cake. Emma's eyes lit up at the feast before them. As they ate, Sarah couldn't help but wonder about Alexander Crawford. The Drake Hotel was one of Chicago's most prestigious addresses, and the handwriting on the note spoke of education and refinement. She glanced at his suitcase again, noticing details she had missed before: the subtle leather trim, the discreet designer logo. What did he think when he arrived at his luxury hotel room, only to find her bargain store clothes and carefully pressed interview suit? Her phone felt heavy in her pocket. She needed to call him. It was the right thing to do. But something made her hesitate. There was her interview at 2 p.m. tomorrow, the culmination of months of applications and preparation. She had budgeted every minute of this trip, and now this complications threatened to derail everything. Emma's voice pulled her from her thoughts once again. "Can I have the cake now, Mommy? Please?" Sarah smiled at her daughter, heart swelling with love for this little girl who had been her reason for pushing forward through all the hard times. "Of course, sweetheart, but first..." She pulled out her phone and began typing a message to Alexander Crawford, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach as she pressed send. "Mr. Crawford, thank you so much for the dinner. You really didn't have to do that. Noon tomorrow works for me. I appreciate the offer of a car service, but I can make my own way there. I haven't opened your suitcase either." Sarah Matthews. She set her phone down and turned to get Emma's cake, but it buzzed almost immediately with a response. "Please call me Alex, and I insist on sending the car. Chicago traffic can be unpredictable. I'll have it pick you up at 11:30. Get some rest, Sarah." As she tucked Emma into bed later that night, Sarah's eyes kept drifting to the mysterious suitcase. What kind of man sends dinner to a stranger and arranges car service for them? And why did his simple text message make her pulse quicken? Tomorrow she would meet Alexander Crawford and get her suitcase back. Then she would go to her interview and hopefully change their lives forever. But as she lay in the darkness listening to Emma's steady breathing, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that her life had already begun to change the moment she picked up the wrong suitcase. The next morning, Sarah woke up to find Emma already watching cartoons on the small motel TV. Her daughter's innocence was a stark reminder of everything at stake. As she got Emma ready for the day, her mind kept drifting to Alexander Crawford's suitcase, still untouched in the corner of the room. At precisely 11:20 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text. "The car is arriving early to avoid traffic. Driver's name is James." Sarah's heart raced as she gathered their things. The sight that greeted her outside the motel made her jaw drop, a sleek black Lincoln Continental with a uniformed driver holding the back door open. "Ms. Matthews?" The driver smiled warmly. "Mr. Crawford arranged for me to take Emma to the Children's Museum while you meet him, if that's acceptable. All expenses covered, of course. He thought it might make things easier for your interview preparations." Sarah hesitated, her protective instincts flaring. The driver seemed to anticipate her concern, quickly producing his official chauffeur license and company credentials. "Mr. Crawford also said to show you this," he added, holding up his phone with a text message visible. "James, please make sure Ms. Matthews feels completely comfortable with the arrangements. The museum has my corporate membership on file." After a thorough check of James's credentials and a call to the museum to verify the arrangements, Sarah found herself agreeing. Emma was bouncing with excitement at the prospect of visiting a museum, and Sarah had to admit it would be easier to handle the luggage exchange without having to watch her daughter. The drive to the Drake Hotel was a journey into another world. As they passed through Chicago's magnificent downtown, Sarah couldn't help but feel the gulf between her life and Alexander Crawford's. The Drake stood like a castle of luxury, its historic facade speaking of old money and privilege. In the hotel lobby, Sarah's fingers nervously smoothed her simple dress, the only decent outfit she had in her carry-on bag. Her eyes scanned the opulent space, wondering which of the impeccably dressed men might be Alexander Crawford. "Sarah Matthews?" The voice came from behind her, deep and warm. She turned and found herself looking up into the most striking pair of green eyes she'd ever seen. Alexander Crawford was tall, perhaps in his late 30s, with dark hair threaded with silver at the temples. His tailored suit probably cost more than her monthly rent, but his smile was surprisingly gentle. "I'm Alex," he said, extending his hand. "I'm so sorry about the luggage mix-up. I hope you and your daughter enjoyed dinner last night." "Yes, thank you. That was very kind," Sarah managed, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach when their hands touched. "I have your suitcase here." "Excellent. Shall we?" He gestured toward a quiet corner of the lobby where two armchairs waited. "I thought we might want to verify the contents before we part ways." Sarah wheeled his suitcase over, acutely aware of his presence beside her. As they sat down, Alex looked at her with an unexpected intensity. "Before we open these, I should tell you something. When I realized I had the wrong suitcase last night, I did try to open it. Not to pry, but to find identification. The lock was engaged, so I couldn't." "Oh," Sarah said, her cheeks warming. "I always lock my luggage when traveling with Emma's things. Force of habit." "A good one," he nodded. "However, when I returned to my room later, I noticed my suitcase had popped open slightly during transit. I'm not sure if you—" "I didn't open it," Sarah interrupted quickly. "I wouldn't." Alex's expression softened. "I believe you. But I think you might have seen something when it fell open. and I'd like to explain." Sarah's heart began to race as she remembered the moment from last night, when she'd moved his suitcase and it had shifted, the corner falling open just enough to reveal stacks of something that had made her quickly shut it again, her hands trembling. "The money," she whispered. "I saw the money." Alex leaned forward, his voice low. $200,000 in cash. "And now you're wondering if I'm some sort of criminal, aren't you?" Sarah's mouth went dry. She glanced toward the lobby entrance, suddenly very aware of how isolated their corner was. Alex must have read her expression because he quickly pulled out his phone and handed it to her. "Please, look at this email. It's from the Chicago Children's Hospital Foundation. I'm on their board. We're purchasing specialized equipment for the pediatric ward, but the usual transfer methods were going to take too long. Sometimes cash is the fastest way to save lives." Sarah's hands shook as she read the email chain. Official hospital letterhead, urgent requests for a ventilator system, and Alex's responses coordinating the purchase. When she looked up, his green eyes were watching her intently. "I should have realized how it would look," he said softly. "A stranger with a suitcase full of cash. But I think you understand something about doing whatever it takes to help children, don't you?" The depth of emotion in his voice made Sarah's chest tighten. "Emma," she said, "everything I do is for her. James told me how thoroughly you checked his credentials before letting Emma go to the museum. You're a good mother, Sarah, and now I'm hoping you'll trust me enough to help you too." She stiffened. "I don't need charity." "Not charity." Alex shook his head. "An opportunity. I did some research last night. You're interviewing at Preston and Brooks Publishing, aren't you? I know Catherine Preston. She's looking for an experienced editor for their new digital division. Someone who understands both traditional editing and modern platforms. Someone exactly like you." Sarah's breath caught. "How did you—" "Your resume fell out of a folder in your suitcase," he admitted. "I couldn't help but notice your impressive freelance portfolio. I also couldn't help but notice the past due bills tucked into the same folder. Sarah, let me make a call to Catherine. Not to get you the job. You'll do that on your own merit, but to make sure she understands exactly what she'd be gaining." Sarah sat in stunned silence, tears threatening to spill. In less than 24 hours, this man had fed her daughter, arranged museum entertainment, and now offered to help secure their future. Yet somehow, it was the way he looked at her, like she was someone worthy of all this and more, that truly undid her. "Why?" she finally whispered. "Why help us?" Alex's hand moved as if to reach for hers, then stopped. "Because when I saw those bills, and then saw your resume, the late-night freelance work, the steady climb from local papers to major publishing blogs, I recognized something. The determination to build a better life, no matter the cost to yourself. It's what I saw in my own mother's eyes years ago." He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "She raised me alone, too. We didn't make it. She died when I was 12, working 3 jobs to pay for my schooling. But you, Sarah, you're going to make it. And if I can help make that road a little easier, how could I not?" Sarah sat in Catherine Preston's office, her heart thundering in her chest. The interview had been going for 45 minutes, and she couldn't tell if the publisher's poker face was a good or bad sign. The morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting elegant shadows across the mahogany desk between them. Catherine's office, with its wall of literary awards and framed first editions, spoke of old money and refined taste, much like the Drake Hotel where she'd left Alex just hours ago. The elegant woman across the desk closed Sarah's portfolio with deliberate slowness and removed her reading glasses, letting them hang from a pearl chain around her neck. Her grey eyes studied Sarah with an intensity that made her want to squirm in her seat. "Your work is impressive," Catherine said finally, her manicured fingers drumming lightly on the portfolio's cover. "The way you handled the Thompson manuscript's digital adaptation was particularly noteworthy, but I'm curious about something." She paused, reaching for her phone. "Alexander Crawford called me this morning, which is interesting considering he's never recommended anyone before, not once in the 15 years I've known him." "How exactly do you know him?" Sarah's fingers twisted in her lap, wrinkling the fabric of her best dress. "It's actually a rather strange story. We met because of a mixed-up suitcase at the airport." Catherine's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose as she leaned back in her leather chair. "And in less than 24 hours, you impressed him enough to make him break his own rule about business recommendations?" She leaned forward, her pearl necklace catching the light. You should know that Alex sits on the board of several major companies. His word carries significant weight in Chicago's business circles. He specifically mentioned your understanding of both traditional editing and digital platforms, skills we desperately need. Before Sarah could respond, Catherine's office door burst open. A man in an expensive suit rushed in, his face flushed with urgency. His tie was slightly askew, suggesting he'd run up the 15 floors rather than wait for the elevator. "Miss Preston, turn on the news. Now, Channel 5. Catherine grabbed her remote and switched on the wall-mounted TV. The breaking news banner made Sarah's blood run cold. Breaking massive charity fraud uncovered at Chicago Children's Hospital Foundation. Board members under investigation. The reporter's voice filled the room. Sources say that over $2 million intended for children's medical equipment has been diverted through a sophisticated scheme involving board members. The FBI has seized documents and is questioning several high-profile individuals connected to the foundation. Initial reports suggest the fraud may have been ongoing for several years, with funds being systematically diverted through various shell companies. Sarah's world tilted sideways as Alex's photo appeared on the screen alongside other board members. The caption beneath read, "Alexander Crawford, Board Treasurer, Person of Interest." The photo showed him at a charity gala, wearing a tuxedo, and that same gentle smile he'd given her in the hotel lobby. "Oh my God," Catherine whispered, her composure cracking. She turned to Sarah, her expression hardening into granite. "Did you know about this? Is that why you're really here? Was this whole interview a setup?" "No." Sarah stood up so quickly her chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "I had no idea. He was trying to help me." Her mind raced back to the cash in his suitcase. $200,000 for medical equipment, he'd said. But now, "Ms. Matthews," Catherine's voice was pure ice. "I think we're done here. Security will escort you out." Sarah stumbled out of the Preston and Brooks building into the bright afternoon sun, her vision blurring with tears. The doorman who had greeted her so warmly on arrival now watched her suspiciously as she passed. Her phone was exploding with notifications, news alerts about the scandal, a missed call from James the driver, and a series of increasingly urgent text messages from Alex. "Sarah, it's not what it looks like. Please let me explain. I know how this seems. Is Emma still at the museum? Let me make sure she's safe. There's more going on here than you know." The mention of Emma sent a bolt of panic through her. Sarah frantically dialed James's number, her hands shaking so badly she had to try twice. "Ms. Matthews," James answered immediately, his usual professional tone tinged with concern. "Don't worry, Emma is fine. We left the museum an hour ago when Mr. Crawford called, sounding strange. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know when something's wrong. We're waiting at the coffee shop next to your motel. Emma's having hot chocolate and drawing pictures." Sarah nearly collapsed with relief, leaning against a nearby building for support. "Thank you, James. I'll be there as soon as I can." She was already running toward the L train station, her interview heels clicking against the pavement, when her phone rang again. Unknown number. "Ms. Matthews? This is Agent Diana Chen with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. We need to speak with you about Alexander Crawford and a suspicious cash transaction. Our sources indicate you may have information about certain foundation funds." Sarah stopped dead in her tracks, her heart pounding in her throat. The pieces started falling into place. Alex's sudden interest in helping her, the convenient timing of their luggage switch, the cash. Had she been played? Was she just a convenient cover story for moving stolen money? Her mind flashed back to his gentle eyes, his understanding words about single mothers, the way he'd arranged everything to make Emma comfortable. Had it all been calculated manipulation? Her phone buzzed with another text from Alex. "Sarah, I know what this looks like, but the foundation is being targeted by someone on the inside. I was trying to protect the assets before they could be seized. Please meet me at the Drake. I can prove everything." Agent Chen's voice cut through her spiral of thoughts. "Ms. Matthews, are you there? We have agents who can meet you at your current location." Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. "Yes, I'm here, and I need to tell you something about a suitcase." But as she began to speak, her phone pinged with one final message from Alex. The words made her blood freeze. "Sarah, they're coming for the money, but they don't know about the real evidence in the suitcase. The USB drive hidden in the lining contains everything. The true records, the transfer trails, the names. Emma could be in danger if they think you know anything. Don't trust anyone who can't tell you what happened to my mother on June 15th, 1998. Sarah's finger hovered over the phone, her heart pounding against her ribs. The date tickled something in her memory, a detail from Alex's resume that had fallen out of her suitcase. His educational history showed a gap year starting June 1998. He'd told her his mother died when he was 12, working 3 jobs to pay for his education. The FBI agent was still waiting on the line. Emma was safely with James. And somewhere in Chicago, a suitcase held either evidence of Alex's guilt or proof of his innocence. Sarah closed her eyes, knowing her next decision would change everything. "Agent Chen," she said firmly, gripping her phone tighter. "Before I tell you anything, I need you to verify something for me. What happened to Alexander Crawford's mother on June 15th, 1998? The agent's pause lasted a beat too long. "I don't see how that's relevant to our investigation, Miss Matthews." Without another word, Sarah ended the call and started running toward the Drake Hotel. Sometimes, she realized, the biggest risk was not taking one at all. The Drake Hotel lobby was swarming with FBI agents when Sarah arrived. Her heart sank, but she forced herself to walk calmly past them, her hands steady despite her racing pulse. She checked Alex's suitcase thoroughly before leaving the motel. The USB drive was exactly where he said it would be, carefully hidden in a concealed pocket within the lining. The elegant marble floors echoed with hurried footsteps as agents moved purposefully through the space. A young couple near the entrance whispered and pointed at the law enforcement presence, their vacation plans clearly disrupted by the unexpected activity. Sarah caught fragments of their conversation about the hospital scandal as she made her way to the elevator bank. Her phone buzzed with a text from James, confirming that Emma was happily enjoying the Ferris wheel at Navy Pier. The further from this situation, the better. The elevator ride to the penthouse floor felt eternal. The thumb drive felt like it was burning a hole in her purse as she approached the presidential suite, where a single agent stood guard. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see dark clouds gathering over Lake Michigan, promising an afternoon storm. "Ma'am, this area is restricted," the agent began, his hand moving instinctively to his weapon, but was interrupted by a familiar voice from inside. "Let her in, Johnson. She's the one we've been waiting for." Agent Chen appeared in the doorway, looking considerably less polished than she'd sounded on the phone. Her blazer was slightly wrinkled, and there was a tightness around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Behind her, Sarah could see Alex sitting at a desk, his jacket off and sleeves rolled up, surrounded by laptops and documents. "Sarah." Alex stood immediately, relief flooding his features. 2 agents moved to block his path, their stances rigid and professional. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." "Sit down, Mr. Crawford," Agent Chen ordered sharply, then turned to Sarah. "Ms. Matthews, I hope you're here to cooperate. We know about the money in the suitcase. This would all go much easier if you tell us exactly what your role in this scheme was." Sarah took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders as she stepped into the suite. The room was thick with tension, and she could feel the weight of multiple eyes on her. "Actually, I'm here about June 15th, 1998. She watched Agent Chen's face carefully, noting the almost imperceptible twitch at the corner of her mouth. "The day Maria Crawford died in a hit-and-run outside Chicago General Hospital, where she worked 3 jobs. The case was never solved, though witnesses reported seeing a black Lincoln Continental leaving the scene. Alex's sharp intake of breath was audible in the sudden silence of the room. Agent Chen's expression remained carefully neutral, but her fingers tightened on the folder she was holding. "The same model of car," Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "That belongs to Raymond Chen. Your father, Agent Chen, former board member of Chicago General, current chairman of the Children's Hospital Foundation." Sarah reached into her purse, pulling out the USB drive. "And the man whose signature appears on all the fraudulent transfer documents detailed in these files." The room erupted into chaos. Agent Chen lunged for the drive, but another agent, older, with a federal marshal's badge, moved faster, catching her arm. "Diana Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy and obstruction of justice. We've been watching you for months." As additional agents swarmed in, Sarah finally allowed herself to look at Alex. He was staring at her with a mixture of awe and something deeper, more profound. The afternoon light streaming through the windows caught the silver in his hair, and for a moment she saw the 12-year-old boy who had lost his mother far too soon. "How did you figure it out?" he asked softly, moving closer as the agents led a protesting Diana Chen away. "The resume that fell out of my suitcase," she said, meeting his gaze. "It showed you took a gap year after your mother's death. I looked up the newspaper archives on my phone on the way here. Your mother's death was suspicious, but the investigation was suddenly dropped. Then I saw Agent Chen's name in the text messages you showed me this morning about the hospital board. The same last name as the detective who closed your mother's case." Alex ran a hand through his hair, his composure finally cracking. "I've spent years tracking the corruption at Chicago General. When it spread to the Children's Foundation, I knew I had to act. Diana Chen was using her FBI position to protect her father, just like he'd covered up my mother's death. The money in the suitcase was meant to be traceable, to lead them into making a move we could document. And I was just in the right place at the right time?" Sarah asked, remembering the chaos at baggage claim, how different her life had been just 24 hours ago. Alex's lips curved into a small smile that made her heart skip. "The suitcase switch was genuine, but when I saw your resume, your situation, it reminded me so much of my mother. I couldn't help but want to protect you and Emma. I just never expected you to end up protecting me instead." The federal marshal approached them, looking grave but satisfied. "Mr. Crawford, we'll need your formal statement. Ms. Matthews, yours as well. But first," he smiled slightly, pulling out his phone, "I believe you have some unfinished business to attend to." Sarah blinked, confused, until she saw the text message he was showing them. It was from Catherine Preston. "Tell Sarah her interview slot is open at 4 p.m., and tell Alex he owes me dinner for not trusting me with the whole story sooner." "Catherine is an old friend," Alex explained, his eyes sparkling with hope. "She's been helping me gather evidence for months. She knows everything now. About the foundation, about my mother, about you. She's waiting to resume your interview." He checked his watch. "Which gives us exactly 45 minutes. For what?" "For me to take you to lunch and properly ask you out on a real date." He took a step closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne and see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "That is, if you're willing to give a guy with a complicated past a chance." Sarah thought about the past 24 hours, the fear, the confusion, the surprising moments of connection. She thought about the way Alex had cared for Emma's comfort, even in the midst of his own crisis, how he'd recognized her struggle as a single mother, how he'd fought for years to uncover the truth about his own mother's death. "Well," she said, trying to hide her smile, "I suppose we do need to discuss what happened to our actual suitcases." The federal marshal cleared his throat. "About that, we found them in Agent Chen's office. Apparently she had them picked up from Lost and found as evidence." He gestured to the corner where both suitcases sat. "Though I believe the restaurant at the Peninsula might be a better place to exchange them." Alex offered his arm to Sarah, his expression softening into something tender and full of promise. "What do you say? Ready for another adventure?" Sarah took his arm, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath her fingers. Outside the hotel windows, the threatening storm had passed, leaving behind a brilliant blue sky. Sometimes the biggest risks led to the greatest rewards. Sometimes a simple mistake, like grabbing the wrong suitcase, could change everything. "You know," she said as they stepped into the elevator, "Emma's always wanted to learn how to play the cello." Alex's answering laugh was warm and rich, filling the small space with joy. "I think that can be arranged. After all, we've got a lot of lost time to make up for." As the elevator descended, Sarah leaned slightly into his shoulder, feeling for the first time in years like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Sometimes, she realized, home wasn't a place at all. Sometimes it was a person, sometimes it was a moment, and sometimes, just sometimes, it was as simple as reaching for the wrong suitcase at exactly the right time.